Image copyright Getty Images. Image caption Bergdahl arrives at the courthouse on Monday. Bowe Bergdahl, the U.S. soldier held as a Taliban captive in Afghanistan for 5 years, has pleaded guilty to desertion and misbehavior before the enemy. The 31-year-old Army sergeant entered his plea on Monday before a military judge at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The Idaho native's lawyers have argued he cannot get a fair trial following criticism from Donald Trump during last year's presidential campaign. Mr. Trump had called him a no-good traitor who should have been executed. "We may as well go back to kangaroo courts and lynch mobs," Sergeant Bergdahl said in a 2016 interview that was obtained by ABC News and broadcast on Monday. In the remarks to British filmmaker Sean Langan, who was himself held captive by the same Taliban group in 2008, Sergeant Bergdahl denied he had left his post in order to meet Taliban militants. Image caption An undated, unverified photo of Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl with what appears to be Badruddin Haqqani was released by the Taliban after his return to the U.S. "You know, it's just insulting, frankly," he said. "It's very insulting, the idea that they would think I did that." Sergeant Bergdahl, who remains on active duty desk work in San Antonio, Texas, was first charged in 2015, a year after his release. During Monday's hearing, he told the court, "I was captured by the enemy against my will. At the time I had no intention of causing search and recovery operations. It's very inexcusable," he added. He is scheduled to face a sentencing hearing starting on 23 October. The maximum penalty for misbehavior before the enemy is life in prison, and the maximum sentence for desertion is 5 years. Army General Kenneth Dahl, who led the investigation into Sergeant Bergdahl's disappearance, has testified that a jail sentence would be inappropriate. In a podcast interview last year, Sergeant Bergdahl said he walked off his combat post to prove to senior officers his commanders were unfit for service. Media playback is unsupported on your device. Media caption A video shows Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl being handed over to U.S. forces upon his return to the U.S. An Army Sanity Board evaluation determined that he had schizotypal personality disorder at the time of the alleged criminal conduct, and now suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. The decision to exchange 5 Taliban captives from Guantanamo Bay in order to secure Sergeant Bergdahl's release was heavily criticized by Republican lawmakers as contrary to U.S. policy of not negotiating with terrorists. Several former platoon mates have alleged U.S. soldiers were killed or wounded during the frantic 45-day search for the 501st Parachute Infantry Regiment trooper. The judge has allowed wounded servicemen to testify that they were hurt because of the search for Sergeant Bergdahl. Much of Sergeant Bergdahl's captivity was spent in a cage, he said, and he was extensively tortured by his captors, a military expert has previously testified. During Mr. Trump's presidential campaign, he called Sergeant Bergdahl garbage and suggested he should be summarily executed. "You know, in the old days, bing, bong," Mr. Trump said at a campaign rally as he imitated firing a gun. "When we were strong,